Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, we are on. Well, welcome this evening to Keep Indiana Learning's session on Don't Drop the LMS, Keep them Learning. I am Laura Christie.
Hi there, I'm Amy Stevens.
We're both digital coaches with Keep Indiana Learning, and we wanted to bring this topic to you after coming out of last year with digital learning and sometimes only virtual learning. We wanted to make sure we kept this conversation going. So we will get started. So our schedule tonight is to talk through a 5Es presentation and be interactive with you, looking at a progression of thinking and also offering you some topic tastes within and having this conversation about the LMS and keeping learning going this way.
And then not forgetting the awesome resources that Keep Indiana Learning has for you as well.
Mm-hmm. So we thought we would pull a little social media in since a lot of teachers tend to go to social media, whether it's Twitter in this case, or Facebook, or other methods of social media. And one of the tweets that was out on August 9th, we're prepping for school. And I thought this advice was interesting. What Canvas LMS advice do you give other educators when starting a new school year? And we get connect with a veteran teacher who may have had the course before, utilize the import course content and help yourself to, content that's already created. And just this had me thinking about the pros and cons of working together and collaborating and using a lot of the great content that we have already created as educators in the last year, especially.
Absolutely. And then the more that you get to know Laura and I this evening, the more that you'll understand that we're coming at this topic from two very different environments, but a very similar mindset. And so when we found this tweet, it was all about Google Classroom and the idea of a course management system versus a learning management system. And just considering the point of view. And, when a district is thinking about collating ideas and learning and collaboration and communication platforms, who are they really thinking about, and what is being brought to mind, and what is actually best for students as they grow through their years in that school district?
So as you might have guessed, I am a 5th grade teacher at Sand Creek Intermediate, and I do use Canvas at Hamilton Southeastern. We've had Canvas for a number of years. And in partnering with Amy tonight, Amy's district has a different way of thinking about curating digital instruction content. So Amy, why don't you tell them what you use?
Absolutely, absolutely. We use Seesaw for the Tiny Titans, and we also use Google Classroom. We are new to one-to-one iPads this year, and their new product, Schoolwork, has made its way into some of our teachers' classrooms as well. But again, keeping in mind that difference between a learning management system and a course management system.
Absolutely. So this is another image that is kind of on topic and just the idea of how do you take your LMS to the next level? How do we continue to do things that are going to help all learners and benefit? And this tweet is kind of nudging us to think about mastery paths, which are in Canvas, where you can give some sort of assessment or some material at the beginning of a unit and content, and then tailor your students' paths based on their first initial performance. What are the things that they need? And so, what do you know about this concept, and how do we offer student choice and utilize these systems to help maximize our students' needs and interests? So when we think about instruction in a digital platform, the 5Es is a methodology that I like to use in creating modules and units. on Canvas, but also within, a unit that you might do in person. We're always looking to engage a topic, jumpstart interest, and then start to explore it and break it down. And then trying to fine tune. So when we get into explain, those are sections where we're fine tuning the communication on the topic. And then of course, extend is to try to go to the next level and take things to the next step. And then as practitioners and learners, we learn how to reflect well. What are the things we need to reevaluate and assess as far as learning goes, but also as educators, what is working and what is maybe not working. So we thought in typical fashion, we would engage you tonight with maybe some humor. This is a tweet from Life with Miss Rob. Maybe you can relate to this teacher's point of view on last year, their thoughts on the LMS versus this year. So you can kind of see she's overwhelmed and then feeling pretty good about this year.
I love that because, it doesn't matter if it was the LMS or, even just a change in classroom. I love that this just really we're starting off our school year with this humor because it is there last year versus this year.
Absolutely. So a taste for engage would be to think about some of the consistencies, aspects of whether it's Canvas or Seesaw, something that you're using to curate materials. Students benefit from not having to learn new systems as they progress through grades. So if it's primary grades using Seesaw, they're consistently using that until they reach a certain developmental stage. Or in our district's case, continuing Canvas all the way through helps students build confidence in the tool. And then parents also can provide support. They're learning one system and being able to assist with that tool as well. And then, of course, teachers being able to benefit from having this community of educators that they can collaborate and innovate with.
I think that's such a huge bonus when you do have that because it extends you outside of your district, outside of your state. Really, I know from the Seesaw community, worldwide. It was so neat to see some lessons, and you may have seen this in Canvas, that were in a different language. And if there was an opportunity to include a voice over the lesson, the accent of that teacher came through. If you wanted to reuse content that they had added to their community, it was really neat.
Absolutely. On the Canvas side, being able to explore Canvas Commons, or we'll talk later in this session about how important it is to share course content with one another and different ways of doing that. So there was a case study done by Captura, and I thought this was really interesting and maybe helps us understand why we might have been so stressed at times with learning in LMS. Their study revealed, you can see that in the last 6 months, there's a huge gain in K-12 teachers and districts using LMS for the first time. It's a huge learning curve. And then the maximum years here, there's really not a lot of depth where teachers have been using some of these tools and resources. Most of them are in that 1 to 2 range as far as their experience and exposure to using an LMS to improve their classroom instruction.
Something that I found interesting about this is not only reflecting on the time that this study, was tabulating data on, but I know a lot of school districts were so fortunate to be able to get some money, maybe last year and then for this year. And so I would love to see this study here in a couple of more years to see which districts or which states decided to put that money towards an LMS. But then if the money ran out, did they continue to spend it? Did they continue to budget for it because they see the value in it?
Sure. I think the case in point too is just how much more there is still for teachers to have time, professional development on to be able to maximize the tools. It just goes to show that we haven't reached that threshold maybe with a lot of educators that they feel that confidence and
Yeah,
efficacy with the LMS, being able to use all the resources available to them. So that need for professional development or links to resources and tools that people can offer just remain really important.
absolutely.
So one of the other things to explore when we think about maybe moving back to in-person classrooms and moving away from, if teachers were thinking, well, I'm back in the classroom, I don't necessarily need these tools all the time. I think these are the points where I would push teachers and administration to think about their accessibility. With Canvas being able to check your accessibility. And when we give you this presentation, you will be able to have access to all these links. It shows you just how to go through your pages and your assignments and make sure that things are visually accessible. And then to dig a little deeper in that, UDL, Universal Design for Learning, when we think about representation, all of the things that come with the ability in the LMS to provide audio and visual support and giving students the opportunity to repeat things and go back to instruction at multiple points or to pause as they're going through content and take notes, we're really expanding the learning potential that our students will have access to. And just that ability for parents to be observers of exactly what was happening in the classroom, being able to bring parents into the content as well. And then this idea of being able to go back to content, student submissions, and really watching students grow and develop their skills and strategies throughout a school year. You're really seeing this LMS content as a potential digital portfolio.
Mm-hmm. As we move into the explain feature, this is so important, I know, when you are growing as an educator, to be able to say, what did I like that I did last year? What could I have done better? And where do I have opportunities for growth? But at the heart of it, there's probably a lot of content that either dictated by standards or by the grade level you teach or the age level that you really value and would like to grow and reuse. And so this awesome Ditch That Textbook graphic is sharing with you some wonderful tips on using an LMS, specifically Canvas in this situation. And then just kind of reflecting on if you had the opportunity to reuse some of your lessons that were rockstar lessons, which ones would you use? And if you had the opportunity to redo some lessons that maybe needed some growth or you would tweak this or that for whatever reasons, which ones would you have access to? And this idea of having an LMS gives you that bank, that warehouse of lessons, of activities, maybe even the opportunity to, and Laura, I don't know if you've done this, anonymously store some student work to show as exemplars or, to share strategies.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with what you're talking about with student work. That is a benefit of being able to go back to a previous course and assess the students' contributions from the year before and even use them. You can download images of submissions. Let's say they took a screenshot of something and add that into your teaching materials. And even use them to teach students how to reflect on their own growth, maybe even setting some of those images up as a rubric. This one is an exemplar, and this one, what do you notice? What are the differences? So students can do that front-loading thinking on their own performance. But if you haven't checked out Matt Miller's tips, he has a lot on his pages that will help you just start to continue that process of refining. We often think we have to recreate everything, and we truly do not. There's a lot here that you just are utilizing with. One of the things I wanted to point out that I think becomes really helpful is just the ability to embed resources that you already know how to use. Going back to your favorite apps and your favorite tools and just start start putting those within your LMS so students aren't having to log into multiple places. That LMS can be the hub, the place that they go to be not contained, but to receive the content and keep it in a quality fashion for them. So as far as some of the experts, we wanted to give you the ability to, in this presentation, have access to a lot of curated materials. One of the things that can be so frustrating as a teacher is, who do I go to? Where do I search? And what do I look for? And as your digital coaches, we like to do some of that on the back end for you so that you can just jump to what you need. Ashley Espinoza's playlist goes into a lot of tutorials for online teaching. There's some information on Kelly Lahey's materials that kind of do some fine tuning for you within Canvas. She even has some great videos on how to use your cameras and bring in science to your Canvas page. We've got the Canvas Queen. And then if you haven't checked out Canvas for Littles, that really helps with your primary integration for those of us that might be using Canvas with young students. And Seesaw integration is also in her. She's got some videos on how to integrate Seesaw into Canvas itself. Another toolkit that we found for you tonight is just allowing you to go to topics and ideas. This link is active and you can see expert videos on how to support your multilingual learners and just some of the Google integrations. If your district's using Google, or even if you're not and you have your own personal Google account, Google integrates really well with the LMS. Anything to add, Amy?
You know, I think when I was just actually going to share that I think it's so neat that a Google slide was used to create this image. And then, you know, even more so that a lot of the tips and tools that are in this kit, they truly show you how, if you are, which many of us might be, if we do switch to an LMS coming from a Google world, that you don't have to sort of pack it up and forget all of that. Like, it can continue to grow and so forth. I use a lot of my Google stuff, obviously in Google Classroom, but I use a lot of my Google tools and knowledge in Seesaw, and even on my, you know, even on my Apple products, on my iPad and so forth. So it's just really, I feel like, showing our students as they grow through this ladder of school, that by the time they graduate, they will have had access to all these different platforms, and showing them, you know, the teacher is specifically how to have a little toolkit here. This infographic could be used in the classroom, and then also the information in here is wonderful. So we're just super excited. You know, the other thing too is with any of these tools that may be specific to Canvas, it's always so good to sort of pique your interest with these tools, because even if your school does not use Canvas, but you do have a different LMS, like maybe Schoology or something, this might get your wheels turning on, oh, wow, I didn't, okay, so that's available in Canvas. I wonder if I could do that in mine, and so forth. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Absolutely. I think also that we forget how many helpful tools there are to help with grading and streamlining the grading process, and helping you make sure that all of your students have submitted work, and helping you keep track of that. One of the things, this is a side note, but when you are using paper or pencil, students will forget to put their name on something, and the LMS never happens. You always know who it belongs to. So that's one ultimate benefit of the LMS for sure.
That's awesome.
So I'll let you kind of get into the extent here. I pulled a quote from my own daughter. I asked her about LMS and, you know, what do you think about Canvas? And so right from her mouth, I like when all my teachers use Canvas, so I can use the calendar as my planner. When a teacher uses something else, it's confusing. And I really loved this because back in the day, you know, we all carried around these spiral notebooks to write our assignments down. And the LMS actually does, with the calendar feature, it does it for you, or it creates to-do lists for you. And we forget sometimes how helpful that is for our students to have curated already for them. So that was one thought, that when we think about our students and their mindsets, that it does require us to remember that collaboration leads to a better student experience.
Absolutely. And I do love, not only those real world skills, but then also the ability, like we had said in here, to spark deeper learning. There are different courses, there's different tracks, if you will, that teachers can really provide to students as a pathway for their learning. And I know here we've got Marty with us tonight, and she had mentioned Genius Hour as being one way that she's used in LMS. And I just absolutely love the idea of getting kiddos to not only think about, their core curriculum, but also to maybe put on that calendar some Genius Hour activities or some to-do lists when it comes to all of the curriculum that our students are exposed to in their schools.
Or even along with that, your PLCs coming together and curating content and making sure that things are meeting all learners' needs too, right? Because we can share that. I've had this great lesson, or this has worked, this module, this unit, this approach, this way of using a tool has really helped my students. And so we can definitely start sharing those things faster, which brings me back to collaborating. And just being able to send, whether it's one lesson, one quiz, one discussion, one page to a colleague, being able to just send it directly has really been a great tool, because maybe that teacher doesn't want your entire module, or they're overwhelmed by trying to take on your entire course with all of this content. But if there's one lesson that you're having a conversation with, or you're going to use for formative assessments or summative assessment, you now have this ability to quickly share that one item with another teacher. And then with that, I am a part of the teachers who used Canvas Facebook group, and I put a question out asking about Canvas Commons. Who has great content on Canvas Commons that we should know about? And it was a little bit stressful because no names were mentioned. There's all kinds of people, like, who do I follow on Twitter? You ask that question and you'll get links of people's handles, and I think this is maybe one area where we could all collectively help each other out. And you can import things that are already on Commons, but what if, the big what if here, if we're talking about Extend, what are those favorite modules, lessons, discussions that you've created that you can get out there on Canvas Commons, so that the rest of us can find you. And I would love to see a movement where we start tweeting those links to Canvas Commons. Check out this great lesson, because that is one of the ways we can support each other. Instead of getting content another way, just being able to embed it right away into your classroom structure.
Yes. I mean, think about, in my Google Classroom world, my teachers are sharing with just their teaching partners, maybe with other grade level teachers at other districts, if they're friends with them or they have a networking, web already set up. But a commons idea, a community idea, a library idea. I had mentioned earlier in just my interactions with Seesaw, my kindergartners love when I reuse, maybe just a voice of someone from Australia, but also the brain of someone from somewhere in the world. And I love that you mentioned a movement, Laura, because that would be fantastic to get more people to be like, well, gosh, I really, I love window shopping, but maybe I could put my brand in that store.
Absolutely. I mean, that was one of the big comments on the Facebook groups, was just that it's great if you're starting a homepage. You can find all kinds of great resources for that. but not necessarily the depth of content that people might be looking for. So I did my part. If you look up Laura Christie in Canvas Commons, you can find a lot of things that are already there waiting for you if you're a fifth grade teacher. So I intend to keep doing that and would love to see, again, more of us just help each other in these great ways that we can today, and not be isolated to just our school or our school systems, but be able to help create just wonderful thinking and learning beyond what we might even be able to imagine right now. So if you
Absolutely.
don't know how to use that, I did provide you some resources for how to import and how to export your content. We don't want to leave you without that. So hold on. This just came out from Canvas as far as some ideas, and I think some of these could work really well, even if you were using another LMS structure. They have provided a tool list of things to think about. A lot of them were making me think about social emotional learning and different kinds of ways of activating prior knowledge and using visuals. So I really loved some of the ideas using discussions as bell ringers, like your exit ticket, but also your entry point in. It can be something really quick, and they can kind of see each other's thinking too. That is one of the benefits of discussion. Creating virtual gallery walks with digital artifacts, being able to use quizzes not as a quiz, but as a survey to gauge how students are doing, posting rubrics, allowing students to resubmit. I think that has been something that we as educators are continuing conversations about with giving feedback, but also our grading practices. If you're trying to go towards mastery learning, then your LMS allows your students to resubmit, look at rubrics, get feedback from you, and go back and make improvements. So this is just a wonderful guide of some extending steps. Some of these I feel very called to try out and work on. And one of the things as a digital coach I would like to do is add to our YouTube channel some of these 40 items that you could then try out and see in action. So you're not having to think about all of it yourself. And I will put anything that I make on Canvas Commons. So
I love it. I love it. One thing, Laura, that I think is just so crucial is a lot of our kiddos have been learning at home, learning at school, more than we have ever in the past years, right? And when the child is at home and learning, then the family has access over that child's shoulder at what that child is doing, their stamina, the quality of their work, and so forth, right? But when they're in person, then the parent is almost, one step removed, right? And I love the way that an LMS can give a parent insight into what the child is doing, as opposed to maybe what some feedback I've gotten from my students' parents, where they just get a weekly report, or unless they sign in as their child, they don't actually get to see the quality of their work. And so, I love that it talks about to drive in-person learning, because I think it could really continue to connect this home school teacher connection, this triangle.
absolutely. And not leaving parents out, just the depth of how much our parents really do assist and guide and want to be involved with their
Yeah.
students as learners. So that link is also in the presentation. And then you can't have a conversation about learning without bringing up Hattie. John Hattie did a partnership study also with Canvas, using a lot of his data and research with the zone of desired effects. And we know that teacher efficacy is so important. And at the beginning of this presentation, we were talking about how new LMS really is for a lot of educators. And so, the importance of collaboration, more professional development, lots of resources that teachers can use so they do have that efficacy of how to navigate instruction in this platform. And then obviously, a lot of the discussion and scaffolding that LMS allows for, your deliberate practice, the ability to bring in evaluation and reflection, help seeking. I've taught my students the last few years email etiquette. How do you email me through Canvas? How should you write that content? Wonderful lessons and also great influence for students to be able to advocate for themselves as learners. And then that specific feedback, we know that timely feedback and very specific feedback really pushes learners the most. So this conversation, it all comes back to learning and the relevancy of how do you use the tools of your classroom.
Absolutely. And then, speaking of where we are right now with class size and this and that, I find, when I started the year, I think I was in that red zone there, Laura. And then,
Where most teachers live.
yes, yes. But that deliberate practice, and then as you look at just that collective teacher efficacy, it is wow, like that's made up of some good stuff. And so I do find that there are resources that we have here just to, again, that topic taste to get you engaged, to explain a little bit. And as we're reflecting on it, we really do encourage you to think, what are you currently using? What do you currently have access to? And if an LMS is not in your future, for example, this school year, something like Canvas is not necessarily in my future, but there's so much from here that I can take and think, okay, well, how can I continue to engage and keep them learning in my classroom and then share that with my staff and families so that content is shared, teachers are collaborating, students are collaborating, and then obviously, thinking critically too.
So this
So we need
comes to mind for our non-Canvas schools and districts that might be exploring. You want to tell them a little more about this, Amy?
Yes, absolutely. And so I kept visualizing this buffet of choices, right? And it's like so overwhelming when you walk into this LMS room and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, what do I dip from? What do I make my main plate?" And when you click on this link as Laura did, you can see there are a lot of choices. So much so that, I've been in this technology integration world for over 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and I have watched it grow, but my mind was blown. Laura, I don't know if yours was too, scrolling through page after
Yeah.
page of choices.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. But here's the cool thing about this, and this is just one resource. We have others too that we can link. It allows you to click and compare. And so, something that my school corporation has been working on, and I hope the same for you all as well, is, what is our ecosystem? What do we stand for? And so forth. And so using some of those filters and coming up with some of those keywords to help you start to click and then drill down or filter into some programs that might be most appropriate for you. And then reaching out to those companies and just asking for a demo, asking for a phone call. I don't know when we'll have another in-person, conference or convention at, like let's say, heck for us here in Indiana. But regardless, this tool is here, and again, there's others that can help you find maybe a little bit closer to what you're looking for if you're interested.
Well, we are two digital coaches from Keep Indiana Learning that met during the quarantine pandemic time of being virtual only as far as our relationship until over the summer. So just the importance of remembering that the connections you make to other educators can absolutely make your life better. And I can tell you firsthand that getting to know Amy as a fellow digital coach virtually for majority of the year last year, and then getting to see her in person, it is the relationships that we have access to with this day and age are part of our professional learning community. And I highly recommend branching out and meeting people that you're connecting with in whatever platform it is, whether it's through Keep Indiana Learning or some other social media avenue.
Yes. Oh my gosh, my heart is so full. Thank you so much. Because likewise, it's just been so amazing. And who would have thought that I would be, able to, add content and add thought to a topic that, I don't currently use in my classroom, but I do on a different level. And look at us coming together and having the ability to share with other educators. Are your wheels turning? And if they are, how are you keeping them learning? And I'm just so grateful to team up with Laura and the Keep Indiana Learning team with CIESC. Make sure that you check out the amazing resources. We talked about sharing to different communities that you might be connected with. Well, we're connected with Keep Indiana Learning, and as is a bunch of, oh my goodness, amazing brains. And so those brains have been adding to that knowledge pot, if you will. And so Laura and I have just been so excited to be part of something so wonderful. So we hope that you take care and that you also click around and find something that might be wonderful for you. And also feel free to reach out. We've got our information on the next couple slides. We would love to hear from you with questions. Maybe just a little, what do you think session? Whether it's one or both of us, we would be so excited to talk to you a little bit more about how we currently are keeping them learning and how a learning management system, a course management system could really help your students.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to more opportunities to share with you.
Thank you.